Civil society assessed Gboyega Oyetola's achievements ahead of the Osun State governorship elections. And will expose you, says the PDP, as they give former President Olusegun Obasanjo 48 hours to clarify remarks on Atiku. For this is Plus Politics. I'm Mary Ann Okon. Intense grassroots campaign by political parties and candidates, allegations and counter-allegations, as well as inter-party defections have characterized the build-up to the July 16 governorship elections in Osun State. Now, the incumbent APC Governor Gboyega Oyetola is eligible for re-election and has been re-nominated by his party. Nonetheless, supporters say the election is likely going to be a contest between the incumbent governor, Gboyega Oyetola, and who's the candidate of the APC, by the way, and the PDP's Senator Ademola Adeleke. Now, in his address at the various campaign venues across the state, Governor Oyetola constantly reiterated his message that he had no money to give voters before, during, or after the elections as a form of inducement. He has also assured the people of good governance that will impact positively on the lives of Osun residents. The governor expressed joy at the reception he got from his supporters, saying it's heightened his hope of victory come July 16 governorship elections in the state. Well, joining us to discuss his achievements and more is Mr. Olufemi Lawson. He's a pro-democracy activist. He is the media entrepreneur and he's also the national auditor of Campaign for Democracy. That's a very big profile. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
First things first, we are looking at the progress that the governor of Osun State has made since he took over from the now Minister of Adegboyega Oyetola. And we have seen a lot of a chain of events that have happened building up to this election, whether it be insecurity, whether it be allegations, defections, like I said at the beginning of the conversation. But let's look at the man himself. He took over in 2018 and had a lot of eyes on him. How can you assess his achievements so far? Do you think that he's done well? Let's start by looking at changing the tide from Rauf Adegboyega government to an Oyetola government. What has been the most significant change that has taken place?
Well, the most fundamental change from my physical assessment and close interaction with not only Osun State political space, but the people, having had, lived there, our families there, our businesses there, and of course, having been actively involved in pro-democracy activities in the state, even before the former Governor Adegboyega era, suggests that Governor Oyetola today is one of the most underreported governors when you talk about governance over the last couple of years in Nigeria. In actual fact, a lot of people, particularly those who are keenly involved in what was the situation in Osun State before he came in 2018, and now will agree with me that this is a governor who was not, who is not like the typical Nigerian politician that blows trumpets about how much more they have been able to deliver on their mandates and, of course, their promises to the electorate. Between what he inherited, just like you said, and now, there are fundamental differences, which may not be in tandem with the usual political aspiration of politicians.
Explain it. I'd like to understand what
the aspiration of the people. The administration of Governor Adegboyega, as radical as it was in coming to the position of Osun State, was such that had so much conflict of interest with the people of Osun State. Adegboyega came with a lot of visions, came with a lot of programs, but some of these programs were executed out of the aspiration of the people. So no matter how beautiful they were, it was always at conflict, with the people, with the civil servant, with the political class, and some other. But one thing Governor Oyetola was able to do from the beginning was to return governance to the people. and to begin to execute government policies and programs in line with the demands of the people. Let me give you an example. When Governor Adegboyega Oyetola came, he embarked on a school reform program, harmonization of school uniforms, school curricula, and some other things. This, pitched the governor against the people for almost 8 years that was governor of Osun State. But when Governor Oyetola came, he didn't just bring out policies for education in Osun State. He went back to the people, constituted committees, had interactions with people across the state. What do you really want? How should we really run the educational system? Brought professionals,
so you're saying that the former governor was not connecting with the people? A
lot, as beautiful as his programs were supposed to be. So this governor returned, the culture of asking the people what, and that is why today the school reform program in Osun State has enjoyed the acceptability of the Osun State people. Schools now wear their own uniform, unlike the singular uniform program of the Oyetola administration. That is just an instance. And if you look at the way this government is executing this project, having been part of the groups of civil society that visited Osun recently, you realize that most of the communities visited, projects are being executed on the basis of the need of the people. It is good to have beautiful ideas. You may think it is enough for us to build flyover in this community, and for the people it's about having potable water or basic health centers. So that flyover will make no meaning because it does not conform with their need. What the Oyetola administration has been doing from our interaction with the people is to meet with the people, meet with the communities, and assess their need. In line even with the need assessment program of the federal government, and bring projects and programs. And that is why today, Osun State, as we speak, have the highest number of working primary health care centers. I've been to the state of Nigeria by the virtue of my work, and I can say that Osun was the state where between one ward and the other, you find not just health centers that are built for the purpose of having buildings, working health centers with personnel, with facilities, with drugs and every other thing required to call these basic health centers.
And these health centers were built by Governor Oyetola?
Over 300 as we speak.
Or his predecessor?
Over 300 in the last 3 years have been built by the incumbent administration.
Interesting. And if I were to go there on a fact-finding mission and to be certain that
there are visuals.
Because I ask this because several governors in different states have built state-of-the-art health centers, and 6 months down the line, those health centers are not working. Can a Governor Oyetola go walk into any of those health centers and get treatment as opposed to flying outside of the country? Because it's one thing to say you built a nice healthcare center for the people, but it's not something that you can use. So what is the quality?
What has been the situation that you have just referred to is that one governor just sits in the comfort of his living room and assume that we need to build a multi-billion health facility in the state capital or wherever, maybe in his village, in the name of the state. And mostly these are usually tertiary and secondary health institutions. But if you look at the basic healthcare need of the people, you speak from the ordinary man who had malaria, the woman who is undergoing antenatal, who does not actually need to go to the general hospital. Because even before these big hospitals came, there are these traditional birth attendants, there are nurses, medical practitioners in the neighborhood who treat these basic health issues. So what he did is not to build gigantic health infrastructures, even though the state institution is building a tertiary health facility. But it is about the fact that I don't need to go to the general hospital to treat malaria, to treat headache. It is about bringing health care delivery to the people. So it is sustainable because you don't need to bring a scanner, you don't need to bring all sort of big equipment and machines to a basic health center. It has to do with the fact that I don't need to travel from Iboko or my village to Osogbo to get health care at the tertiary institution. So he has been able to take health care delivery closer to the people that you may not need to go and register your wife at the state general hospital because he has to go through 9 months antenatal. So these are the things that these basic, the primary health care facilities are taken care of. So it is not about the fact that when there are issues that requires surgery, and some other critical health issues, they are transferred to the secondary and tertiary health institutions that are managed by the state, and of course in the state there are also federal healthcare institutions. But the primary need of the people has been the focus of the government from our assessment.
Let's talk about making the state viable, the viability of the state economically, business-wise, how many business opportunities have been created under his administration? What's the ease of doing business status of the state, especially the city, the big city? What kinds of investments has he attracted?
One of the fundamental ingredients required to actually attract investors into any society is the safety and security of investment, which has been one of the major reasons why people don't actually come to you to invest in your community, in your state or your society. Today, the state is rated as one of the most peaceful in the country because of the commitment of its administration to the security of properties and lives in the state. This is one of the states least expected, even from some of us as Yoruba people, to implement the Amotekun, the Southwest Security Network. Is one of the states where the network is effectively working today, and you realize how much more the state has also been able to do in empowering the police and other security agencies. And so the state now has enjoyed peace. It has attracted a lot of economic activities. For people who have visited Osogbo some 10 years ago, you will know that it is no longer the same state today. All banks have their branches in the state. Investors are beginning to come to invest not only in the mining activities, in other socio-economic activities. And it has improved from our interaction, even with the citizens and state actors, the internally generated revenue of the state. And that can only happen in an atmosphere where there is peace and stability, just like we saw.
Let's talk more about the security aspect. There was a very big incident in the state at a time where all eyes were on Osun State. And you did speak about the fact that Amotekun seems to be very active, and they have collaborated with the police. If Amotekun has been that active, why did we have that kind of incident? I mean, I remember in Ogun State when it first started with the so-called unknown gunmen and the issues of herders and the ban on open grazing. Has that also been implemented in Osun State in terms of grazing? Because we saw other states saying they would stay action, there would not be a ban on open grazing. But how protected are the farmers? How protected are the people of Osun State, especially with what happened recently? What
happened recently happened in Ondo State, the Owo incident.
No, not the Owo incident. There was another
a clash.
Yes.
Yeah. If you look at the security situation, particularly in the Southwest, and if you want to make an analysis of the farmer herders conflict or herders invasion of farms or attacks on villages, if you rate it comparatively, you realize that Osun is one of those states where, just like Lagos, where there have been few or no incidences of clashes within herders and farmers or attacks on villagers. Today there's hardly a week that you don't hear reports from parts of Ondo State, Ekiti State, where communities are being invaded by these earth militias and some criminal elements who also masquerade as herders across the communities. But today you can really find in the news, this is a news organization, where there are issues or where there are clashes between herders and farmers. Mm-hmm. What Amotekun we had interactions even with the Amotekun Corps in Osun State with the Director General. And at the point of our interaction, we even had, we were opportune to witness a scenario where a particular leader of the earthmen around Okeila put a call across to the Director General of the Amotekun Corps, reporting an incident of cattle rustling. Then you can begin to analyze the level of trust that has been built in the Amotekun in Osun State. The leader of the herders called the DG of the Amotekun Corps, reporting an incident of some cattle rustlers who came from Ekiti to rustle cattle from Okeila to Ekiti State and were caught. So he was asking the DG should take over the case from the local Amotekun unit that apprehended them at that local government of the state. So it tells you that the state has been able to do a lot in ensuring that not only is the security, is the Nigerian police force, nipping crimes in its board, but that Amotekun is effectively also delivering on its mandates, across the state. And we physically, experienced that during our visit to Osun State.
Let's talk about youth. The youth is a very important factor, even as the governor is returning to that office. He had spoken about the fact that defeat is not an option and that he definitely hopes to return. Many would say that he probably is dependent on the power of incumbents. But what has the government done to empower young people? We see that most of the crimes that are committed are committed by young people. Even the election violences, I mean, I would not see you, I would really be embarrassed if I see you carrying a ballot box and running away. But we see that, young people are engaged in this. How has his government impacted young people, and what's the level of employability for these young people? Because Nigeria is suffering underemployment and, of course, unemployment. What's being done to make sure that the average Osun youth is engaged one way or the other, whether it's private or public?
Well, it's a national issue, just like you rightly said. A lot of our competent young people are underemployed, and a lot, of course, are unemployed as we speak. And the truth is that no state or federal government has the capacity to bring into its own workforce the number of young people that are leaving schools, that are graduating, or that are gone through vocational processes and needs job to be self-sustaining. But what the government has been doing, from our observation, from our assessment, is the opportunities it is creating with the interventions from the federal government, with the job opportunities that are being created by small and medium enterprises that are emerging in Osun State, not in the capital but across the state. And the state also has deliberate policies, through its Ministry of Youth and Sport, to engage young people. It is impressive that the governor, thought it wise to, appoint a very young person as the Commissioner for Youth and Sport in the state, Mr. Ademola Adeleke, who has been effectively engaging with the young people. And there have been series of programs focused on the young people to empower them to, give loans, to create opportunities.
Spread? That's why I asked at the beginning. What's the spread? There's always a tendency of mass migration to the center, which is the capital. That's because most of these empowerment programs or whatever you do does not spread across the state.
Yes, unlike what ordinary should be seen around the state capital, where everybody wants to cluster around the government, the seat of government to get this benefit. This has been able to, the government has been able to distribute it significantly to other parts of the state in a row. We've been to processing factories where people now engage in vocational activities of processing foods, through the agricultural programs. Another part of the state where people who get loan can now do their own businesses without having anything to do even with the government in the state capital.
Okay, let's talk about the politics of 2022. July is just around the corner. In a couple of days, we will see heightened campaigns, and everybody's getting ready for the elections. Ekiti just got concluded. We're still seeing lingering issues about electoral malpractices, etc., etc. We've also seen drama happen during certain campaigns. There was a shootout from the ministers, allegedly from the ministers' convoy at some point during the primaries. We also see that there were many people in the APC that seemed not to be very happy with what's been happening. Let's talk about what's been happening in the APC in Osun State. How together is the party? I saw the governor reaching out, begging members of the party not to be angry, but to look to the future. But how much can he pacify the members of the party as they get ready for the elections?
It is expected that the governor, as the leader of the state, as the father of the state, will do everything possible to speak, to appeal, to enjoin citizens, to support him, and to bury hatchets, and of course, especially those within his political parties, so as to ensure that his governance, continues. But the truth is that what is happening, or what is presumed to be happening in APC, is not peculiar to APC. Today, as we speak, two major political gladiators have left the PDP to contest in this election. At the intro, you narrated the contest has been between the governor and the PDP's candidate. But as I speak with you, the person who almost won the governorship primary of the PDP in 2018, Dr. Akin Ogunbiyi, is in this race as the candidate of their court party. Popular candidate, an intellectual, a business magnate, you understand, who is also in the race. The former deputy speaker of the Nigerian House of Representatives is also in this race. as candidate of also one of the major political parties, the Labour Party is not a pushover politician in Osun State. It's also one of those who have contested from the PDP.
So what does that mean for the APC?
What it means is that it is not the only APC in Osun State that has issues. But the truth is that politicians, whether from the factions of the PDP and the APC, have the same obligation as the governor has to promote unity, to encourage those who are dissatisfied to come around and ensure that the party attains victory. And that's what Governor Oyetola has been doing. But the ultimate decider in every election is the people.
And you have called out several opponents of the governor who, in your words, are no mean, they're ordinary politicians.
Yes.
So that poses a threat of sorts.
It does not. It does not really pose it.
Doesn't it?
It does it because if you look at every election, what is the percentage of politicians or political actors who vote and determines the outcome of every election? It is usually about we must understand that governance, democracy is about the people. You will always have the majority of the people who are non-partisan, participating in the election. That is the reality. Nobody can tell you that it is the majority of a particular political party members that votes or decide who wins an election. It is usually...
Then the APC can come here and tell me that the governor has done so great, and then the PDP can come here and also tell me the governor has not done well.
But it is left to the ordinary people.
But yeah, it is, of course, grateful that you're saying that. It's down to the people. And if the people are unhappy with Governor Oyetola, definitely he will be voted out.
Yes.
And they will have a better choice.
And there are no indications that the people are not happy with him. Especially if you know the history of the state.
I don't expect you to say anything.
The history of Osun State is known. There's nothing hidden about it. This was a state that was known for, worker strike, that was known for protests by pensioners. We were all here some 8 years ago, where Osun was always in the news for non-payment of worker salary, for protests by pensioners, for all sorts of disturbances. But today, I can hardly read report, even from your news medium, about worker strike in Osun State. These are the issues that have direct impact on the people. It's not about how politicians feel. Politicians will always be aggrieved. It is left for politicians, the governor and his party, to reconcile with the politicians. But the ultimate deciders are the people, and they will decide the outcome of this election.
Well, we look forward to July as the elections in Osun State come to play. Of course, we have been speaking with Femi Lawson, who is, of course, a good governance advocate, here to speak on the expectations for the elections come July this month. I want to say thank you for being part of the conversation. We will have more of these conversations as elections draw closer. Well, we'll take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we will be talking about the People's Democratic Party. A conversation between the former President Olusegun Obasanjo and the PDP, who's giving him an ultimatum to clarify his recent remarks about the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Stay with us.